What's the most ridiculous lie you told that actually turned out to be true? My boss kept asking why I was always tired at work. The truth, I'd been staying up until 3 a.m., playing video games, but I panicked and said, actually, I've been taking night classes learning Italian. She got this huge smile and goes, that's amazing. My husband's Italian. You should practice with him sometime. I just nodded and hoped she'd forget, but she didn't forget. She brought it up every single day. How's your Italian coming along? Did you learn any new phrases? Marco is so excited to meet someone else who appreciates the language. I kept giving vague answers like it's challenging but rewarding, and I'm focusing on pronunciation right now. Meanwhile, I'm still gaming until dawn and showing up to work looking like a zombie after a week of this. She corners me by the coffee machine. You know what? I'm having a dinner party this Saturday. Just a few people. You absolutely have to come so you can practice with Marco. My stomach drops. Oh, I wouldn't want to impose nonsense. He's been asking about you every day. He even pulled out his old Italian cookbooks to make something special. Now I feel terrible. I try to get out of it. Actually, I'm not sure I'm ready to have full conversations yet. Perfect. That's exactly why you need practice. Marco will be so patient with you. She's already walking away, calling over her shoulder. Saturday at 7. Don't you dare cancel. I spend the next 3 days in full panic mode. I download every Italian app I can find. Duolingo, Babel, Rosetta Stone. I'm watching Italian movies with subtitles during lunch breaks. I even buy an Italian-English dictionary and start highlighting random phrases. But it's hopeless. You can't learn a language in 3 days when you're starting from zero Friday night. I'm lying in bed at 2 a.m., not gaming for once, just staring at the ceiling in dread. I consider calling in sick to work and avoiding my boss forever. Maybe I could transfer departments. Maybe I could quit and move to a different city. Saturday arrives and I'm a nervous wreck. I show up at her house with a bottle of wine, sweating through my shirt. She opens the door beaming. He's so excited to meet you. He's been cooking all day. I can smell garlic and herbs and I hear someone humming in the kitchen. She leads me through the living room where a few other coworkers are chatting. They all turn and smile. Oh, this is the one learning Italian. The pressure is building. We walk into the kitchen and there's Marco, this friendly-looking guy in his 50s stirring something on the stove. He turns around with this huge grin and immediately launches into rapid Italian. I catch maybe 2 words, ciao and bene. I'm frozen like a deer in headlights. He's still talking, gesturing with his wooden spoon, getting more animated by the second. My boss is watching with pride, clearly expecting me to respond. Everyone else has followed us into the kitchen and they're all staring. The silence stretches on. Marco stops talking and looks confused. I panic and just blurt out the only thing I remembered. Mi piaggio formaggio, which means I like cheese. Dead silence. Then he starts laughing hysterically. Turns out he was testing me. He started laughing uncontrollably. In the end, he was just testing me. But no one else laughed. My boss looked at me with an expression somewhere between shock and disappointment. My co-workers, gathered around the kitchen island, also fell silent. Marco's laughter echoed alone until he noticed the strange atmosphere in the air. Ah, that was funny, wasn't it? He said, trying to soften the mood. But the damage was already done. My lie, which started as an innocent excuse to hide nights spent gaming, had now become an embarrassing spectacle. Wait, you don't speak Italian? My boss asked, with the coldest voice I had ever heard from her. I felt sweat running down my back. I was still holding the wine bottle, as if that would protect me from the shame. I tried to learn. Really. It's just that the classes... I started to ramble, but she had already crossed her arms. It was a difficult week. I was tired. I couldn't make progress. A week? She repeated, and her voice went up a tone. You made me believe you had been studying Italian for months, that you took it seriously. I even brought my husband for this. I made him cook his mother's favorite dish because he got excited about someone who valued the culture. She made air quotes when repeating the words, and that's when I saw the real anger in her eyes. I tried to justify myself, apologized, swore I didn't want to offend anyone, that I only made it up out of shame for admitting I was addicted to games. But honestly, it was already too late. What was once a simple social lie had now become a betrayal of trust, a public humiliation. I tried to leave discreetly, but she wouldn't let me. She told me to stay and have dinner with everyone, since Marco spent all day cooking, and she sat me right next to him, right. Every bite was torture. Everyone was commenting phrases in Italian and laughing among themselves, as if I were invisible. The worst part? Marco stopped trying to be nice. He looked at me sideways, like someone observing a rat on a fancy table. On Monday, at the office, I became a joke. Not openly, of course, but everything became funny. Someone left a post-it on my desk with words in Italian. Someone sent an audio saying, ciao formaggio. The worst part was when the manager from another department, who wasn't even close to me, came to my desk and said, so you like cheese? How interesting. Let's schedule a meeting in Italian. How about that? It was mockery, disguised as humor, and I was the clown of the moment. Gradually, they started excluding me from the most important meetings. The boss no longer called me for trusted tasks. Projects that were almost in my hands were redirected. And when I confronted her about it, she simply said, if you lie about something so simple, who guarantees you wouldn't lie about work? That's when I understood. That small lie had completely destroyed my reputation there. And you know what's worse? It was a company that sold itself as modern culture, informal environment, respect for differences. But it only took one silly mistake for them to turn me into a pariah. They made it seem like I was a fraud, as if I had committed some crime. And the worst part, they were having fun with it. They punished me with smiles and ironies. It took me time. But one night, while staring at my reflection in the dark monitor, I decided I was going to turn the game around. Not with lies, not with excuses, with results, and with revenge. If they wanted to see the ridiculous person trying to speak Italian, fine. I was going to put on a show, but on their terms. And when that happened, they were going to deeply regret underestimating me. I went home that day feeling like trash. I couldn't even turn on the video game. That monitor that used to be my escape portal now only reflected the face of someone who had lost control of their own narrative. I had been exposed, humiliated, and made into a joke in the middle of an environment that swore to be light and inclusive. It was a farce. The company was a clique, and now I was the burnt ingredient at the bottom of the pan. Nobody wanted to deal with it. But I was determined. I was going to swallow that crushed pride, gather all the pieces of my reputation, and transform them into ammunition. And more. I was going to do it in front of all of them. That night, I downloaded all the Italian apps again. And this time, I wasn't looking for excuses. I bought an intensive private course with daily online classes. I found a retired Neapolitan teacher who gave video call lessons and agreed to pay the price. He was strict, methodical, and didn't accept excuses. But I needed exactly that. At work, I kept my head down. I pretended not to hear the little jokes, not to see the cheese emojis in emails, or the little notes left on my chair with parole del giorno. I just smiled politely. Deep down, all of this was feeding me. I made it my fuel. I started isolating myself. I lunched alone, arrived earlier and left later. Every free moment was dedicated to the language. A month later, I could already understand 80% of what they said in movies. 2 months, I started speaking with my teacher only in Italian. 3 months, I dreamed in Italian for the first time. 4, I went to a traditional restaurant and ordered the entire menu in the language. The waiter even asked me which part of Italy I was from. And that's when I decided to act. The company announced the year-end party. It was going to be themed. Each department would have to present a small performance or activity based on some culture, a way to celebrate diversity. And guess what theme my department received? Italy. It was almost comical. My boss, of course, got excited. She was already calling Marco again, saying he could prepare something special. And she sent me a private message on the company's internal system. If you want to just watch this time, no pressure. But it would be great if you could, I don't know, read some impactful phrase, only if you feel comfortable. Her audacity disgusted me. After everything, she still made it seem like she was being generous. But I accepted. I replied with, "Sure, it'll be a pleasure to contribute." She had no idea what I was planning. I spent the following 2 weeks rehearsing with the teacher. I prepared a small speech about identity, resilience, and overcoming, all in formal Italian. He helped me correct every verb, every intonation. And on the day of the party, I went wearing clothes that reminded me of typical Southern Italian attire. Nothing exaggerated, elegant, sober, but striking. On stage, she called me with that same arrogant smile. And now, our colleague who loves cheese is going to try a nice phrase, right? People laughed. More invisible emojis on my forehead. But when I started speaking, and it wasn't a textbook phrase, it was a real speech. Silence took over. I used elevated vocabulary. I made strategic pauses. I ended with an impactful phrase I learned from the teacher. Chi ride di te oggi, un giorno ti applaudirà in piedi. Those who laugh at you today will one day give you a standing ovation. Everyone fell silent. Marco, in the corner, started clapping slowly. Then the colleagues. The boss tried to laugh nervously, but no one joined her. That night, I received private messages from several colleagues praising me. One of them, who always made jokes, wrote, "Dude, I felt ashamed of myself. You're fucking awesome." And the boss? Silence. Not even a congratulations. But I already knew what was coming. In the following days, she started calling me to meetings again. She tried to include me in new projects. One day she even commented that, "I should have taken you more seriously from the beginning, right?" And me? I just smiled. But I didn't forget. She destroyed my image for pure entertainment. And now she was trying to clean hers as if nothing had happened. And that's when I decided I was going to show everyone who she really was. And I was going to use her words against her. Because sometimes, the most efficient revenge is done with elegance, and in fluent Italian. From that speech onwards, something changed. Not just in the work environment, but within me. For the first time in months, I felt back in control. It was as if every syllable of that fluent Italian had rebuilt my dignity, brick by brick. And it was in this moment of silent rebirth that I realized. The game was still ongoing. The difference was that now I mastered the rules. While colleagues gradually came closer again, trying to erase the past with empty compliments and pats on the back, my boss continued with that forced smile and calculated praise. She wanted to show everyone that she was supporting my growth, as if everything had been part of a pedagogical plan. One day she even dropped this gem. "I think shame worked better than a paid course, huh?" She said this in front of 2 other supervisors. Everyone laughed. I didn't. And it was at that moment I knew. She felt no guilt. Never did. In her mind, I was still an employee who deserved to be ridiculed. And that compliment disguised as a joke was just another attempt to put me in my place. That's when I started observing more carefully. The way she treated others, especially the new ones. She took advantage of their enthusiasm to delegate difficult tasks, put them in uncomfortable situations, and when they made mistakes, she made sure to comment loudly. Sometimes during meetings, it was systematic humiliation, but subtle. She always did it with a light tone, as if she was just joking or helping them mature. I decided to start recording. I created a diary on my computer with every abusive situation I witnessed. Times, names, words used, reactions of those involved. I recorded with my phone in my pocket a meeting where she told an intern, "If you're going to make mistakes like this, it would be better if you hadn't come at all." And then, in front of the HR manager, denied everything with an angelic smile. Of course not. I would never say something like that. I just encouraged her to pay more attention. But this time, I had proof. I spent weeks gathering evidence. I got screenshots of emails with passive-aggressive tones. I recorded audios where she mocked foreign clients' accents. I kept everything in an encrypted folder in my Google Drive. And I waited. The perfect moment came when they announced a coordination position. It was the position she had been trying to reach for years, but was always blocked due to posture problems. This time, with the positive repercussion of the cultural presentation, she thought she had real chances. She started a veiled self-promotion campaign. She praised me in public, sent pretty emails to the entire team. She even sent an apology cake on a Friday with a note written, "For our favorite polyglot, proud to see you flourish. Hypocrite." So I prepared my complaint. I scheduled a meeting with HR, brought everything, audios, screenshots, descriptions, even messages from other colleagues who confirmed similar attitudes. I spoke calmly, objectively, without apparent resentment. I said I understood that mistakes happen, but that there was a toxic pattern coming from her, and that it wasn't fair for someone like that to be promoted. HR was silent for a few seconds. Then they said, "We will investigate seriously, and we thank you for bringing this to us." The following week, my boss was called for an internal evaluation. She came back visibly shaken. She stopped smiling at me. She stopped greeting me. She tried to confront some colleagues, thinking they had given me away. But I never said who supported me. Shortly after, the email came out. So-and-so will not be considered for the coordination position. And more, she was transferred to another department, with less exposure, less influence, almost an organizational limbo. On the day of the move, while she was emptying her desk, she passed by me without saying anything. But I looked into her eyes, and I said in Italian, with a polite and impenetrable tone, "Le parole possono ferire più di quanto si pensi." Words can hurt more than one imagines. She understood. For the first time, I saw genuine anger in her eyes. Not the sarcastic kind, silent anger, because she knew she had lost. And worse, she lost to someone she had tried to destroy for pure pleasure. But I didn't finish there. I had more plans, because it wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who laughed, who mocked, who let it happen without doing anything. And the next part of my revenge involved showing everyone that mocking the cheese boy had been the biggest collective mistake of that company. After my boss was transferred, the climate in the office changed. Not drastically. Nobody became a saint, but the constant tension that hung over the desks disappeared like smoke. It was as if oxygen had returned to the room. The interns started smiling more. New employees felt comfortable asking questions. And me? I became a mix of legend and enigma. Nobody knew exactly what had happened. Some said it was a formal complaint. Others thought she had made some serious management error. The most curious thing? Everyone approached me with more respect. Not genuine respect, but one full of caution, as if I had some hidden power. They didn't know what power that was, but they knew it was better not to play with me again. And I took advantage of it. It wasn't just revenge. It was repositioning. I rebuilt my image with such discipline that even the superiors started seeing me with different eyes. I received an invitation to participate in a company innovation task force, something that before only management favorites received. I accepted with a contained smile and a folder full of ideas I had been noting since before everything started. Meanwhile, I didn't stop studying Italian. Now I liked it. It was mine. I transformed the language into shield and sword. I started writing texts on Italian blogs, participated in forums, made friends with a university professor from Florence. When I least realized it, I was about to get an international proficiency certificate. That silly lie, born from the panic of being just another adult addicted to video games, had transformed into a bridge to a new version of myself. But, like every good revenge story, there were still pending issues. There were people in the office who had laughed at me with pleasure. People who took advantage of the situation to climb by stepping on my shoulders. One of them was Amanda, the marketing analyst who, at the time of my Italian show, was the one who spread the phrase "mi piaggio formaggio" through the departments as if it were a corporate meme. She even made t-shirts with it at the company's anniversary party. They used it as a comic costume. And I saw. I pretended I didn't see. But I kept it. Amanda was ambitious, smart, but arrogant. She treated subordinates as disposable and charmed all the superiors. She was promoted quickly after pulling the rug from under 2 colleagues, one of them even quit in tears. But Amanda was smart enough to never leave traces. Except now she underestimated me. We met frequently in sector integration meetings. I smiled. She smiled. But her smile was from someone who still thought I was the cheese boy. One day, at coffee time, she said, "So, still playing until dawn? Or did you become an Italian citizen for good?" She said it with that light tone, with the muffled giggle of someone who thinks they were witty. But I was prepared. I looked at her and replied, in Italian,
Fluent and direct. Ho imparato che a volte la lingua più affilata non è quella della bocca, ma da chi osserva in silenzio. I learned that sometimes the sharpest tongue is not the one in the mouth, but from those who observe in silence. She blinked.
Not understanding. So I translated, looking into her eyes. The sharpest tongue is from those who observe in silence. I think you'll understand this soon. And she understood. Because that same week, I was invited to teach an internal mini-course on intercultural communication, a proposal I had registered months before. And guess which department would have to participate mandatorily as part of the training? Marketing, Amanda included. She tried to get out. She claimed she had already taken similar courses. But the HR coordinator was firm. All departments without exception. It's mandatory update policy. On the first day of the course, I made sure to start with a slide with a phrase written prominently. Words are light until they become stones in the wrong hands. I said that looking directly at her. And I saw the discomfort. I saw the blush on her cheek. I saw the beginning of a recognition she would never admit out loud. From then on, she avoided me. And me? I moved forward, with elegance, but without forgetting. Because true revenge is not scandal. It's the silence that hangs when everyone realizes you've won. And that, no matter how much they try to rewrite history, the cheese idiot was now the name the CEO mentioned with pride in performance meetings. The game had turned. But I still had 2 chapters saved for those who thought they would get away unscathed. Even with accumulated victories, I knew a piece was still missing for this board to be complete. Because the truth is that the company was rotten inside. And the problem wasn't just the ex-boss or Amanda. The problem was the system of conveniences that allowed this type of people to grow, while others were crushed by the weight of silence. And me? I had spent too much time being that other. Until one day, the invitation arrived. It was a national conference on leadership and toxic corporate environments. A big event, with renowned sponsors and live transmission. One of the directors of our company, impressed with my performance and the success of the intercultural communication course, nominated me as one of the speakers. And there, at that moment, I felt the bitter-sweet taste of destiny serving the dish I had been preparing for months. The idea burned inside me. What if I used that stage to say everything? Not with names, of course, but with enough details so that those who needed to understand would understand. I thought for days. It was risky. But the more I thought, the more I remembered the notes on my desk, the muffled laughter, the boss exposing me at a private dinner, the Formaggio t-shirt. Yes, I was going to speak. I wrote every line of the lecture with surgical precision. No open accusations, just coldly structured reports. I started with the Italian lie, told how it became a joke, how it became humiliation, and how the company, which talked so much about collaborative culture, ignored everything for months. And then, I showed how the narrative changes when you deliver results, when you reinvent yourself, and mainly, when you keep proof. At the time of the event, the auditorium was full. I was sweating inside, but outside I maintained a firm expression. I was introduced as the collaborator who transformed a mistake into a story of professional overcoming and today helps companies avoid management errors. The irony made me smile. I started slowly, like someone telling a casual story. And then, I dropped the phrase, "Has anyone here ever pretended to be learning Italian to hide a video game addiction?" Laughter. A lot. And then silence. The wait. I told everything. Up to the dinner. Up to the mi piace formaggio. But this time, I was the one who laughed first. And everyone joined me. Gradually, my speech gained another tone. I spoke about corporate bullying, about how it's disguised as humor, about how toxic managers transform errors into permanent jokes, and how this undermines the productivity and self-esteem of entire teams. I told how I got back up, how I studied, how I became a specialist, and how finally I had the courage to register, denounce, and turn the game around. Standing ovation. For real. In the audience were various HRs, supervisors from rival companies, journalists from business portals, and discreetly, the current CEO of our company. Nobody had warned me he would go, but he went. And after the lecture, he came to me with a firm handshake. "We need to talk." In the following days, I received an email with an invitation to join a new internal committee, focused on integrity, culture, and leadership. The proposal? Map and reformulate the toxic sectors of the company, with veto power over promotions and strategic decisions linked to professional behavior. I accepted, with one condition. I want total autonomy, no interference, no culture makeup, and I got it. Because now they needed me more than I needed them. And that's how, months later, when Amanda tried to climb one more step in her vanity escalation, it was my signature that blocked the promotion. I didn't need to justify. I just wrote, Incompatible with the company's new culture proposal. She knew. And her look, days later, in the elevator, was the best trophy I ever received. The ex-boss? She sent me a polite email, trying to reconnect, praising my lecture. I replied with 2 words, buona fortuna, and I moved forward. Because true revenge is not destroying others. It's rebuilding yourself with so much brilliance that they burn just by looking at you. But there was still one last thing I needed to do. Something personal. Something outside the company. Because there was someone who still hadn't heard any of this. Someone who, at the origin of everything, shook my hand at dinner and said, Marco is excited to meet you. And it was time for him to know who he had spoken to that day. It had been almost a year since that dinner, since Marco had received me with enthusiasm in the kitchen, illuminated by the smell of garlic, white wine, and expectations. The same dinner where I, desperate, had babbled, mi piaggio formaggio, and became the corporate court jester. Except now I was another man, a man who spoke fluent Italian, a respected man, a man who had transformed his own embarrassment into a ladder, step by step, until reaching a position of influence. But there was something that troubled me every night. Marco didn't laugh at me with malice that day. He laughed like someone who found a stumble amusing. But by doing this in front of everyone without thinking about the impact, he turned the key that allowed others to openly disrespect me. And above all, he was the bridge for my former boss to transform an innocent excuse into a humiliation spectacle. It was time to close this cycle. And I wanted to do it with dignity. In Italian. I got his number easily. The company still maintained good relations with him. After all, he was the ex-team manager's husband. I called on any morning, without announcement. Pronto? He answered, with his warm voice as always. Ciao Marco, sono io. Ci siamo conosciuti alla cena italiana, ricordi? Hello Marco, it's me. We met at the Italian dinner, remember? There was a brief silence, then a contained laugh. Ah, il ragazzo del formaggio. The cheese boy. I sighed, but smiled. Non sono più quel ragazzo. I'm not that boy anymore. He seemed surprised by my fluency. He asked me to repeat. Then we engaged in a long conversation only in Italian. I told my side of the story. Not as a victim, but as someone who fell and got back up. I talked about how the joke affected my life. About the condescending smiles. About the whispers in the hallways. He remained silent. And then he told me. Non ho mai pensato che avrebbe avuto quel tipo di impatto. Mi dispiace davvero. I never thought it would have that kind of impact. I'm truly sorry. It wasn't a rehearsed apology. It was sincere, and I accepted it. Non è più per me. È per chi è ancora zitto, per chi non ha voce. Se la mia storia può aiutare qualcuno a parlare, allora è valsa la pena. It's not for me anymore. It's for those who are still silent, for those who have no voice. If my story can help someone speak up, then it was worth it. Marco was quiet for a few seconds, and then said something that caught me by surprise. Sai, dopo quella sera ho iniziato a insegnare italiano in una ONG. Per giovani. Pensavo che fosse il minimo che potessi fare. You know, after that night I started teaching Italian at an NGO, for young people. I thought it was the least I could do. We hung up in peace, for the first time with mutual respect. In the days that followed, I felt something different inside me. A filled void. A weight dropped in the middle of the road. It wasn't pride, it was peace. Because deep down, all revenge is only complete when it stops being about destroying the other, and becomes about restoring oneself. I returned to my routine with lightness. I continued teaching courses, participated in new events, was cited in business magazines and invited to podcasts. But I never mentioned names, never revealed the company. My story wasn't about pointing fingers. It was about showing that a slip, even one born from a simple fear of being judged, can transform into a catalyst for change. One day on a rainy afternoon, while reviewing a text for a new lecture, I received an unexpected email. It was from the ex-boss. Short. No emoji, no cute note. Just, I heard about your last presentation. I confess I underestimated you. Good thing the world didn't do the same. I smiled. I didn't respond, because I no longer needed her validation, or anyone's. That lie, which started with fear of saying, I stay up late playing video games, taught me more than any course. It showed me that sometimes rock bottom isn't the end. It's just the place where we gain momentum. And yes, I still like cheese, but today I savor it with wine, in silence, and fluent in 3 languages.